Hi, and welcome to our week 3 of CTEV 684 Universal Design for Learning, Reaching All Learners. Let's see. So, I made a list of things that I needed to make sure I remembered for this week's announcements. First, I want to say that you all are doing a great job at contributing, and also, I'm really impressed by your responses and your examples and your way of trying to really take the curriculum design and make it personal. I know that a lot of you have had some experiences with Universal Design for Learning, and I can see that in your responses. So, thank you. First, I'd like to start off with a little quick announcement that the lectures for Module 3 and 4, the audio parts, will be coming soon. The audio will take a little bit of time to upload and then make. So I will upload those lectures and you can feel free to go back to them sometime towards the end of the week if you need that review. The audio lectures serve as an opportunity for me to kind of give face-to-face lecture, even though it's kind of hard because you're not present and well, I can't get questions from you and the typical things that you'd have in a face-to-face class. I have considered adding in a conference option, which would allow us to have kind of like a real life classroom, but because of the short time frame that these classes or these courses range, I've decided to kind of let that be up to the communications of the students. So if you would like that option, please let me know. Remember also, I gave you the option to participate in video kind of correspondence weekly or bi-weekly. I haven't seen any responses to that post. It's uh, created as a discussion for you at the end of, I believe it's module 1 or module 2. So please take a look at that if you're interested. Okay, number 2 on my list, learning community norms and reviews. So I've been looking over some of the, just remembering some of the words that people use in their responses to um, questions that they have via email. And I wanted to say that remember, this is a learning community where feedback is important. So I'm not sure if you noticed, but I did mention that the feedback was from instructor and also student perspective, which means that you as a learner, your feedback is valuable to me. So please don't feel like you're being bothersome or that you are adding any weight to my responsibilities when you send emails and you ask questions, because sometimes when you create content, especially in a virtual environment, you are not always aware of the impact. It's always intent versus impact. So my intent could have been to create a great experience for you, but the impact could be that it's confusing and that you don't know what the heck's going on. So your questions help even the the balance between impact and intent. So I appreciate those of you who ask a lot of great questions. Like Winston, I believe you gave me um, the inspiration to create the checkpoints so that people are not getting last minute feedback for their projects, which was super cool because I used to do that in other courses, but I totally forgot about it. So I really appreciated that email, which kind of made me think about, well, yeah, it's a very busy season, especially with family obligations and people having their kids at home for a week since CCSD is off for this coming week. So I appreciate all the emails to ask all the difficult questions or even just the simple questions because they help me balance impact versus intent. So please keep those going. And you don't have to say, sorry to bother you, because it's not a bother. Next on the list is this week's assignment. So for this week, key things that I did was I made the quizzes due on Saturday, which gives you a lot of opportunity to um, respond to your family obligations if you have those, or just to get rest, or just professional personal responsibilities. I am aware of the fact that this is a holiday season with multiple different religious holidays and different things going on. So I wanted to make sure that no one felt pressure, meaning that I didn't want you to feel overwhelmed with the course's responsibilities and also your own. So, quiz 3 and quiz 4 are due 11/24, and then quiz 5 is due 11/26, which gives you a little bit of gap if you're in modules 2 and 3. And module 3 is pretty short, so you could ideally do module 2 and 3 together. And then your midterm is not due until December 2nd. And I did that because then that gives you the weekend to kind of review. And also, if you're following the submission, if you're on track for you're in module 2 this week, then you'll be on track for the feedback. And the feedback for the last module, module 4, would come by Friday, so that gives you 2 days to review the feedback. And on that note, so I noticed with the first submission of responses for the midterm project 1 check-in, a lot of people didn't include the details that make their classroom. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because I think in my head it was like a um, kind of like a natural thing that people would do, but I understand that with an assignment, you need probably for me to be more specific with that part. So, in my head, the way the classroom works is that the students in the classroom make the environment, meaning that there is no separation between how my students learn and who they are because it's all a part of the same process. So, for example, one of my classrooms, 7th grade classroom, I had 2 students that we learned were on spectrums of autism, and one of them refused to speak, and one of them was developing social habits that was sometimes made her not able to participate orally in discussions or in group activities. So to remember that and to make sure I didn't create any boundaries for her, for those 2 females in my classroom, I intentionally created options that allowed multiple ways of action and expression. So, for example, the girl that refused to speak or did not want to orally participate in anything, she was allowed to have a whiteboard to correspond within her group. And then, even with her project, they were allowed to orally present or visually or through audio. So, those kinds of things, the types of students that they were and the things that came into who they were as students made a huge difference in how I would have described my classroom. So when I'm looking at your descriptions of the learning styles of your students, please add in those details because when you get to the end of you understanding how to really implement UDL, you'll be able to integrate the curriculum design with the students that are in mind. So the key thing you have to remember is that UDL is just like any other curriculum design, but it's purposeful and considering the actual environment and the students that are in it and then making it fit for those students so that they can be their best. So that's why I gave that example where I had to consider the types of students that I had as I described or considered design options for that environment because who they were, students, and how they learn were correlated. So make sure that in your first, the step 1, that you put those 2 together so you can see how your students, the way that they learn through the learning styles inventory. And you can use another thing if you like to. I know by this time of the year, I would have already known a lot about my students through different types of surveys and analysis that allow me to get to know them better. So feel free to use those if you want to as a supplement. But also remember that they go hand in hand. So who your students are correlates with how they learn, which then impacts how you should be designing your instruction and your curriculum overall. Let's see, next week's things to keep in mind. So I would advise you to utilize all the options of presenting your responses or your levels of comprehension. A lot of the assignments allow for audio, visual, video, and then text upload. You don't always have to do a written response. The reason why I'm saying this is because the key focus is that you spend your energy on applying what you're learning. So you really need to focus in on doing the midterm project check-ins because that is a great opportunity for you to show what you're going to apply and then get that feedback. Ideally, you should be in the second module check-in if you're following along. If you're a little behind, I understand that. But the way I designed it is that you'll get all your feedback for each of the sections of the midterm by the 3rd module. The 4th module really is the reflection part, which should come at the very end. So, if it's possible, if you can keep up with those check-ins, that would be awesome. The last week, so the weeks that you need to be most concerned with is module 1, module 2, module 3, and module 4, as they will prepare you with the application of your first UDL lesson. Um, let's see, final thoughts. Well, I think that's it. Sorry for the long. Oh, I forgot one thing. Sorry for the long video announcement, but just to make sure, remember that this is, since it is kind of like a busy week for families and for downtime from school. Maybe you can review the module early this week and then check in with me before the week starts, because I know I'll be offline completely on Thursday, but I am open for discourse and conversation Monday through Friday. And I want to emphasize, you can call me if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. Remember that this is a live classroom, meaning that it's not like typical virtual experiences that you may have had where I am not actively engaging in the content with you. This week was a little slow with grading. I'll make sure to kind of catch up with that and give feedback for the classroom discussion of 1 and then go into classroom discussion 2. But continue the great work, and I hope that you have a great week and that you enjoy some of your family time.